The valley was quiet, bathed in the soft light of dawn. Lyra and Ethan crouched behind a ridge, scanning the horizon. In the distance, the hum of Xiphorian ships grew louder, a chilling reminder that their people had come. Lyra's heart beat rapidly, not from fear, but from determination. They would not take her, Ethan, or the child she carried. Not today, not ever. Ethan glanced at her, his eyes filled with trust and courage. "We can do this," he said quietly. "We've survived this long. We can survive now." Lyra nodded. "We have too. For the child. For everyone." The child inside her stirred, almost as if sensing the tension in the air. Lyra placed a hand on her belly, feeling the small movements. "We are stronger together," she whispered. The Xiphorian ships descended swiftly, scanning the valley for signs of life. Lyra's mind raced. The humans were outnumbered, outgunned, and unaware of the alien technology they faced. But humans had something Xiphorians could not predict: ingenuity. They adapted. They solved impossible problems with creativity and courage. And Lyra had seen it firsthand in Ethan. "Follow me," she instructed. They moved quickly through a hidden path she had discovered days earlier, weaving between rocks and using the uneven terrain for cover. Ethan followed without hesitation, trusting her instincts. Together, they reached a narrow canyon where the humans could use natural barriers to their advantage. Lyra set to work, teaching Ethan to use Xiphorian traps and detection jammers in combination with human ingenuity. Together, they set up a series of clever decoys, false signals, and energy disruptors. The humans in the nearby settlement joined them, working tirelessly to prepare defenses. Hours passed. The Xiphorians drew closer. Lyra felt the familiar hum of their ships in the air, each one scanning, each one searching. But she was not afraid. Humanity had a strength that could not be measured by numbers alone. They would fight, and they would survive. The first Xiphorian agent appeared at the edge of the canyon, scanning for movement. Lyra activated a carefully hidden energy field that sent false readings to the agent's sensors. The alien paused, confused, and then moved on. Lyra's heart surged. Each human-made solution, each clever trick, gave them hope. As more Xiphorian agents arrived, Ethan led groups of humans through hidden paths, using the traps and jammers Lyra had set up. The aliens were powerful, yes, but rigid in their thinking. Humans were unpredictable, and their ingenuity created chaos among the invaders. Lyra watched from a ridge, directing movements, using her advanced senses to anticipate the Xiphorians' next steps. She marveled at the humans' courage. Children helped by carrying supplies, adults coordinated distractions, and Ethan moved among them, inspiring and guiding with calm authority. Then, the moment of confrontation arrived. A squad of Xiphorian agents broke through one of the outer defenses, approaching the settlement. Lyra stepped forward, using her enhanced abilities to confront them. Energy flares shot from her hands, carefully aimed to disable rather than kill. The aliens hesitated, surprised by her boldness and the humans' coordination. Ethan and the humans surged forward, using every tool and device at their disposal. Improvised barricades, energy nets, and clever tactics slowed the Xiphorians' advance. Lyra realized the truth she had felt all along. Humans were strong, not in ways her people understood, but in ways that mattered. Courage, creativity, and determination, these were strengths Xiphorians could not anticipate. The battle continued for hours, but gradually, the Xiphorians began to falter. Their rigid strategies could not adapt to the humans' resourcefulness. Lyra and Ethan moved as one, guiding their allies, protecting the settlement, and keeping the child safe within her. Finally, the last squad of Xiphorians retreated. Realizing the humans could not be subdued by force alone, Lyra's chest heaved with exhaustion and relief. They had won, but more than that, they had proven something far greater. Humans could survive, humans could resist, and humans could inspire loyalty and courage that no alien force could break. Ethan approached her, his eyes filled with pride and admiration. "We did it," he said softly. Lyra smiled, placing a hand on his. "Yes," she replied. Together, days passed, and the settlement began to recover. The humans worked tirelessly to rebuild. always guided by Ethan's wisdom and Lyra's knowledge of Xiphorian technology. The child within Lyra grew stronger, showing signs of unusual abilities, enhanced perception, faster reflexes, and a natural understanding of energy patterns. Lyra marveled at the possibilities. This child was not a threat. It was a symbol of bridge between two worlds. Word of the humans' victories spread quickly among the Xiphorian forces. Observers sent to monitor the battle reported back with surprise. Humans had defied expectations, surviving and even outsmarting superior technology. Lyra's people began to reconsider their assumptions. Perhaps humans were not weak. Perhaps they were capable of greatness Xiphorians could not fully understand. One evening, as the sun set over the valley, Lyra sat beside Ethan, watching the sky turn gold and crimson. The child stirred inside her, and she felt a profound connection. "We've done something incredible," she said softly. "Not just for us, but for the future." Ethan nodded, placing a hand on her belly. "Yes, this child. It will change everything. Humans, Xiphorians, the worlds beyond, we can show them all what's possible." Lyra felt tears in her eyes. For the first time, she fully embraced her choices, the bond she shared with Ethan, and the life growing within her. She realized that the thing her people had feared most, the hybrid child, was not a threat. It was hope. The following weeks were peaceful, yet busy. Humans and Lyra worked together, learning from each other. The child's abilities grew rapidly, showing intelligence and understanding that surpassed expectations. Lyra documented everything, careful to record lessons for both humans and any Xiphorians who might come in the future. One morning, a small ship from Zifra arrived, not to attack, but to observe. The Xiphorians watched as humans demonstrated courage, ingenuity, and cooperation. Guided by Lyra and Ethan, the hybrid child's abilities fascinated them. They realized that fear had blinded them. Humanity's unpredictability was not weakness, it was strength. Lyra stepped forward, addressing the Xiphorian observers. "Humans are strong, capable, and loyal. They are not to be feared, but respected. The child you see here is proof that cooperation, understanding, and courage can bridge worlds." The observers were silent. Lyra's words, her presence, and the humans' unity challenged everything they had believed. Slowly, they nodded, acknowledging a truth they had long ignored. As the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant colors, Lyra looked at Ethan. "We did it," she whispered. "We survived, we protected the child, and we proved what humans can do." Ethan smiled, holding her hand. "We did it together," he said. "And the child, it will inspire both our worlds." Lyra placed her hand on her belly, feeling the small movements inside. She knew that the child would grow to be a bridge between humans and Xiphorians, a living reminder that fear and prejudice could be overcome with courage, love, and understanding. The valley was quiet now, peaceful. Humans were rebuilding, learning, and thriving. Xiphorians had witnessed a new kind of strength, one they could not predict, one that came from the heart, the mind, and the will to survive. Lyra realized that the mission she had begun on Zifra was no longer about spying or gathering intelligence. It was about discovering the true strength of humans, the value of connection, and the power of hope. As the stars emerged in the night sky, Lyra felt a sense of calm she had never known. She was no longer a spy. She was a protector, a guide, and a mother. She had chosen humanity, and in doing so, she had embraced the very best of both worlds. The child stirred again, and Lyra smiled. "You are the future," she whispered softly. "A future where humans and Xiphorians can stand together, where courage and love matter more than fear." Ethan wrapped his arms around her, and together they gazed at the sky, knowing that the story they had begun would inspire generations to come. The thing Xiphorians had feared most was not a weapon, not a threat, not an anomaly. It was hope itself, a child who would change everything. And under the endless stars, humanity had won. Lyra's heart raced as she moved quietly through the dense forest surrounding the colony. The warning from Zifra had not left her mind. Emotional compromise would not be tolerated. She had already crossed the line once, but now there was no turning back. She was carrying something her people feared most: a child, half human, half Xiphorian. Ethan walked beside her, unaware of the full truth. He noticed the tension in her movements. "Lyra, what's wrong? You're quieter than usual," he asked, concern lacing his voice. She smiled faintly, wishing she could tell him everything, but the secret was too dangerous. "Just thinking," she said softly. That was all she could manage. The last week had been intense. Their research had taken them beyond the colony, studying natural energy sources humans were developing. But Xiphorian agents had been detecting unusual signals from her devices. Lyra knew it was only a matter of time before they arrived. She remembered the first warning, subtle, indirect, yet chilling. Xiphorians had ways of making threats without revealing their full power. Lyra could not underestimate them. She knew her people would not allow a hybrid child to exist. They would see it as a threat, an anomaly that could destabilize their strict order. And yet, the thought of losing Ethan, of losing the child, filled her with fear she had never known. Fear, yes, but also determination. Humans were resilient. She had seen it over and over. They adapted, they survived, they thrived against impossible odds. And she would not allow anyone, Xiphorian or otherwise, to take that away from her or Ethan. They reached a quiet clearing where sunlight filtered through the trees, casting soft golden patterns on the ground. Ethan paused, looking around. "We should rest here for a while," he suggested. He seemed at ease, trusting, unaware of the storm closing in. Lyra knelt beside a small stream, letting the cool water wash over her hands. She felt the child moving inside her for the first time, a gentle, yet undeniable stir. Her heart tightened. This life, fragile and new, depended on her choices now. Ethan crouched beside her, noticing her solemn expression. "You're carrying something important," he said gently. Lyra's gaze met his, full of a truth she could not speak aloud. She shook her head slightly. "It's complicated," she whispered, though even she could not deny it fully. Suddenly, the silence was broken by a distant hum, the unmistakable sound of Xiphorian detection ships. Lyra's senses sharpened instantly. They were close. Too close. She had to act. "Ethan," she said urgently, "we need to move now." He nodded, trusting her without question. They ran, weaving through the forest, the hum growing louder, signaling that the agents were scanning the area. Lyra's mind raced, calculating paths, predicting the humans' and aliens' movements simultaneously. Her hybrid reflexes and training gave her an advantage. But the humans with her could not match her speed. They reached a narrow ravine. Lyra paused, scanning the edges. The Xiphorian agents would likely attempt a direct approach. She needed a diversion. She quickly found a cluster of rocks and branches, creating a false path that would draw attention. "Follow me, and stay low," she instructed Ethan. He obeyed without hesitation, trusting her instincts completely. Lyra moved like water, silently and efficiently, guiding them through the underbrush, avoiding open areas and ducking under low branches. Hours passed, and the forest began to thin. They emerged near a small human settlement, quiet and almost forgotten. Lyra recognized the place as a research outpost humans used for energy studies. It was isolated enough to hide, but it offered resources they could use. Ethan looked around, catching his breath. "We made it," he said, relief evident in his voice. He glanced at Lyra. "But what were those things? They didn't look human." Lyra hesitated. Should she tell him? The truth was dangerous. "They are not human," she said cautiously. "But they cannot harm us if we stay careful." It was not a lie, but it was not the full truth either. They settled in the outpost, setting up basic defenses and studying their surroundings. Lyra watched Ethan work, amazed by his resilience. Humans had a way of adapting, of turning fear into action. She felt pride mixed with affection, a dangerous combination, but she could not help herself. Days passed. The child inside her grew stronger, already showing small signs of Xiphorian traits: enhanced reflexes, keen perception, and unusual energy patterns. Lyra marveled at the possibilities. This child could be more than a hybrid. It could be a bridge between worlds, a symbol of what humanity could achieve when combined with Xiphorian potential. But danger was never far. One night, while Lyra slept lightly, a scout from Zifra appeared near the perimeter of the outpost. Lyra sensed it immediately. She woke Ethan, whispering urgently. "They found us." Ethan's eyes widened, but he remained calm. "Then we move. There's no time to hide." Lyra led them through a secret exit she had discovered earlier, using natural caves and hidden paths. The agent pursued, but Lyra's knowledge of alien technology gave them an advantage. They moved swiftly, silently, avoiding traps and detection. Hours later, they reached a high ridge overlooking a valley. Ethan leaned on a rock, exhausted. "Lyra, what are we really facing?" She took a deep breath. "My people, Zyphorians. They would not allow this child to live. They see humans as weak, and anything connected to them as dangerous. They will come for us, for the child, but we will not run forever. We need to prepare." Ethan nodded slowly. "Then we fight. For our future, for the child." Lyra felt a surge of admiration for him. Humans could be reckless, yes, but they were also courageous in ways her people could not comprehend. And she knew now that she had chosen her side. She would protect these humans, and she would protect Ethan, no matter the cost. The days that followed were tense but productive. Lyra taught Ethan ways to improve his defenses using alien technology, always careful not to reveal too much of herself. Ethan, in turn, adapted quickly, demonstrating ingenuity that impressed even Lyra. Together, they formed a partnership that was stronger than either of them had anticipated. Then came the moment Lyra feared most. She felt a strong movement inside her, the child reacting, perhaps sensing danger. Her heart tightened. "It's growing faster than I expected," she whispered to herself. Ethan noticed her concern. Is everything okay?" Lyra smiled faintly, hiding her worry. "Yes, it's strong, healthy." But in her mind, she knew they were racing against time. The child's potential was immense, but so was the danger. Zyphorians would not ignore this for long. As night fell, Lyra gazed at the stars. She thought about her mission, the orders she had once followed without question, and the path she had chosen instead. She realized that the true mission was no longer about observation or intelligence. It was about survival, protection, and the courage to defy expectations. Her people had feared humans, but she had learned the truth. Humans were strong, unpredictable, and full of potential. And this child, growing within her, could prove it to the universe. Lyra reached out to Ethan, who was quietly reviewing energy maps. She placed a hand on his shoulder. "Whatever happens next," she said softly, "we face it together. We protect each other, and we protect this child." Ethan nodded, his expression serious but unwavering. "Together," he repeated. "Always together." For the first time, Lyra felt the full weight of her choices. She had defied her people, risked everything, and chosen a path that no Zyphorian had dared to take. The danger was real, and the challenges ahead would test them like never before. But for the first time, she also felt hope. Humanity's strength, Ethan's courage, and the life growing within her were enough to face any threat. The storm of Zyphorian pursuit would come, but they were ready to meet it. And as the stars shone brightly above the valley, Lyra knew that the next chapter of their story, the true test, was about to begin. The morning sun poured golden light over the human colony, but Lyra barely noticed. Her thoughts were tangled, full of questions she could not answer. She had come to observe, to report, to remain distant, but distance had grown impossible. Ethan, his face, his smile, his gentle way of interacting with the world haunted her every step. She followed him that morning, keeping a careful distance. Ethan walked briskly toward his laboratory, carrying a stack of notebooks, oblivious to the gaze watching him. Lyra felt a strange warmth in her chest, an emotion she had never fully experienced before. She reminded herself again, attachment was forbidden. Humans were unpredictable. They could not be trusted. Yet every small act of kindness, every laugh shared with others, chipped away at her resolve. She saw Ethan stop to help a worker carry a heavy crate, saw him bend down to comfort a frightened child, and even watched him carefully rescue a stray dog caught in a fence. Each time, Lyra felt her heart beat faster, though she tried to deny it. Her mission required her to collect data, but the line between observation and involvement blurred. She began leaving anonymous tips for Ethan, warnings about lab equipment, reminders about safety protocols, hints about possible errors in his experiments. At first, she thought it would be enough to protect him while remaining unseen. It was not enough. One evening, after a long day of research, Ethan noticed the notes. He stared at the scribbled instructions on his desk, frowning. "Who's been helping me?" he whispered, almost to himself. Lyra, hidden behind a shadowed corner, felt a thrill she could not explain. She wanted to reveal herself, to see his face clearly, but she held back. She could not risk her cover, or could she? A week later, a human child wandered too close to a dangerous experiment in Ethan's lab. Lyra's reflexes kicked in instantly. She swooped in, grabbing the child before the machinery could cause harm. Ethan arrived moments later, breathless and panicked. How did you?" he stammered, his eyes wide with astonishment. Lyra held up her hands in a gesture of dismissal. "Just luck," she said, her voice calm but soft. Inside, she felt the undeniable truth. She had acted because she could not ignore him, could not ignore the human she had begun to care for. Ethan's gratitude lingered longer than expected. "You saved not just me, but all of us," he said quietly. Lyra felt a strange pull in her chest at his words, a warmth that made her pulse quicken. Her people had warned her about human emotions. They were dangerous, unpredictable. Yet here, she felt a strange sense of belonging she had never known on Zifra. That night, she returned to her safe house, her thoughts restless. Her mission log remained blank. How could she report accurately when her feelings interfered with every observation? She stared at the data screen, her fingers hovering over the keys. Zyphoria's instructions were clear. Emotional attachment to humans was forbidden. But Lyra realized she could no longer separate herself from the human she watched. Especially Ethan. The next day brought a new challenge. A power surge in Ethan's laboratory caused a dangerous reaction in one of his experiments. Lyra rushed to intervene, using her alien knowledge to stabilize the machinery just in time. Ethan watched in awe. "You're not from here, are you?" he asked quietly, curiosity sparking in his eyes. Lyra's mind raced. She had been careful to hide her true identity, but something in her voice, in her actions, had betrayed her. "I just want to help," she replied cautiously, careful not to reveal too much. Ethan nodded slowly. "Well, thank you. I don't know what I'd do without you." The simple sincerity in his voice struck her. Zyphorians believed humans were weak, incapable of real loyalty or courage. Yet Ethan's words, his trust, suggested otherwise. Lyra felt the stirrings of something dangerous, attachment, over the following days. Their interactions grew closer. She began assisting him openly, still under the guise of coincidence. Together, they experimented with new ideas, combining his human ingenuity with her advanced knowledge. The lab became a place of collaboration, where Lyra felt the first taste of shared purpose with another being. One quiet evening, under the dim glow of laboratory lights, Lyra and Ethan reviewed a complex set of schematics. Ethan's hand brushed hers accidentally, and both froze. Lyra's heart raced, a foreign warmth coursing through her. She looked into his eyes and saw curiosity, trust, and something more, something that mirrored her own growing feelings. In that moment, Lyra realized she could no longer deny it. She was drawn to him not as a spy, not as an observer, but as something far more personal. She wanted to protect him, to be near him, to care for him in ways her people had never taught her. Then came the unexpected. A few days later, Lyra felt unusual changes in her body, subtle, yet undeniable. Alarmed, she conducted a private scan using Zyphorian technology she had smuggled with her. The results shocked her. She was pregnant, with a human child. The revelation shook her to her core. Zyphorians had long believed humans were biologically incompatible with them. Hybridization was considered impossible, or at the very least, dangerous. A child born of such a union could be a miracle or a catastrophe. Lyra's mind raced with questions. What would Zifra say if they discovered this? What would happen to Ethan, to the child, to herself. The fear of her people's judgment pressed on her like a heavy weight. She knew Xiphorians would see this pregnancy as a threat, a betrayal. Yet, amid the fear, she felt something new: hope. Perhaps this child could be a bridge between two worlds, a proof that humans were not the weak, dangerous species Xiphorians claimed. Perhaps her attachment to Ethan, her care for him, was not a flaw but a strength. Lyra struggled to find a plan. She could not return to Zifra, not now, not with a child growing inside her. She could not reveal herself to Ethan fully, not until she understood what was happening. And yet, she could not ignore the growing bond between them. Ethan, oblivious to the full truth, continued to treat her with trust and respect. He relied on her insights, appreciated her support, and spoke of her as if she were a partner, not a stranger. Lyra wondered if humans always had this ability to see the value in others, even when they did not understand them fully. One night, as the stars twinkled above the colony, Lyra watched Ethan from the shadows. He was speaking softly to a group of children, teaching them about science and curiosity. His passion, his dedication, and his warmth struck her in ways she could not ignore. She realized she had chosen a path she could not turn back from. Her pregnancy was a secret. Her feelings were growing, and her mission had become something entirely different. She was no longer a Xiphorian spy detached from her surroundings. She was part of this world, part of this human story, and part of a connection that challenged everything she had ever believed. The next morning, Xiphorian authorities transmitted a subtle warning: continue the mission. Emotional compromise will not be tolerated. Report immediately any anomalies. Lyra stared at the message, her pulse quickening. They could not know what had already begun. The warning only strengthened her resolve. She would protect this child. She would protect Ethan. And she would challenge the beliefs that had bound her for so long. As she prepared for the day, Lyra thought about what lay ahead. The humans were unpredictable, yes, but they were strong. They were clever, resilient, and capable of great courage. And Ethan was more than she had ever imagined possible. Lyra understood that the true mission was no longer simple observation. It was survival, it was care, and it was love, a force her people had never taught her to understand. And as she stepped into the sunlight of the human colony, she knew the coming days would test her in ways she could not yet imagine. The storm of discovery, emotion, and danger was only beginning, and Lyra, once a detached observer, was at the very center of it. Lyra stared out of the small spacecraft window, watching the blue-green planet grow larger with every passing second. Earth, a world she had studied for years but never seen up close. Her people, the Xiphorians, had always warned her about humans. They called them unpredictable, weak, and dangerously creative. But Lyra had a mission, and no doubts could shake her focus. The briefing had been clear: infiltrate the human colony, observe a specific individual, and report anything that might threaten Xiphorian interests. Humans had technology, ideas, and emotions that her people considered unstable. Lyra's task was simple in theory, impossible in practice. Humans were messy, emotional, and strangely resilient. Lyra adjusted the small control panel in front of her. The ship's landing gears unfolded silently, lowering her into a forested area near the colony. She had chosen this location to remain unseen at first. The scent of pine and wet earth filled her senses, a stark contrast to the sterile, metallic environment of Zifra. She breathed slowly, reminding herself she was here as a spy, nothing more. Her first steps on Earth were cautious. The humans around the colony did not notice her at first. They were busy with their daily lives, talking, laughing, and moving through the streets with a natural ease Lyra envied. She wore a human disguise, designed to blend perfectly. Yet she felt like an intruder in this world so alive. Her target, Ethan, was easy to identify thanks to the colony's reports. He was not a soldier, not a politician, not a leader. He was a scientist. Brilliant, humble, and widely respected among his peers. Lyra observed him from a distance at first. He worked in a small laboratory near the colony's center. Surrounded by curious machines and glowing screens, his eyes were sharp, always moving, always calculating, yet there was warmth in his smile when he interacted with others. Lyra's first week was filled with careful observation. She followed him to his lab, noted his routines, recorded data about his experiments. She reported everything back to Scifi through encrypted transmissions. Humans are curious, inefficient, yet persistent, she noted in her daily log. But the more she watched Ethan, the more she noticed qualities that Xiphorians had dismissed for generations: kindness, determination, empathy. One afternoon, as Ethan left the lab, he noticed a small child struggling to reach a basket of fruits at a market stall. Without hesitation, he lifted the child carefully and placed the fruits within reach. Lyra watched quietly from a nearby bench. Something stirred inside her. Was it admiration? Confusion? She could not name it. Xiphorians were trained to remain logical, to suppress emotion. Yet here, in this simple act, she felt something new. That evening, she returned to her safe house, a small cabin hidden at the edge of the forest. She studied her notes, preparing to send a report back to Scifi, but her hands shook slightly as she typed. She paused and stared at the screen. This one human was beginning to change her thoughts in ways she did not understand. The next day, an opportunity arose that Lyra could not ignore. Ethan was walking through the colony when a small accident occurred. A heavy crate, poorly stacked, began to fall toward him. Without thinking, Lyra rushed forward. Her reflexes far faster than any human's. She caught the crate just in time, saving him from serious injury. Ethan looked up, startled. "Who? How did you?" he began. But before he could finish, Lyra had vanished into the crowd. Her heart, or what she assumed was the closest Xiphorian equivalent, traced. She had broken the rules. Observation was one thing, interference was forbidden, but she could not regret it. Seeing Ethan safe had felt right. Over the following days, Lyra found herself drawn to him, unable to resist watching over him more closely. She began helping subtly, unnoticed, preventing small accidents, offering guidance through messages disguised as anonymous tips. Each act made her feel more connected to the humans she was supposed to study objectively. One evening, the colony held a festival. Lanterns floated in the sky, laughter filled the air, and music played from every corner. Lyra watched from the shadows as Ethan helped a group of children build a large kite. The joy on their faces was infectious, and Ethan's patience, his gentle humor, made him shine even brighter. Lyra felt a strange warmth as she observed him. She realized that she was no longer merely observing. She cared about him. The thought startled her. Xiphorians were taught to avoid attachment to humans. Emotions were considered a distraction, a weakness. Yet here, she could not deny it. Later that night, as Lyra walked through the quiet streets, she reflected on her people's teachings. Humans were dangerous, yes, but they were also resilient, imaginative, and surprisingly kind. They could inspire courage, loyalty, and even love. Could it be possible that her people had misunderstood them all along? The next morning brought an unexpected challenge. Ethan's lab experienced a malfunction, a minor fire in one of the experimental chambers. Lyra rushed to help, using her superior skills to contain the situation. Ethan was stunned. "You saved everything," he said, his voice a mixture of awe and relief. Lyra hid her face behind her hood, careful not to reveal her true identity. "Just lucky," she murmured, but inside, she knew it was more than luck. She had intentionally intervened. She had chosen to help him. That night, she recorded her report for Scifi, struggling to write objectively. Her words faltered. The human subject shows qualities of bravery, intelligence, and unexpected empathy, she wrote. She paused. Further observation required. Personal feelings may be interfering. Lyra knew she had crossed a line. Spying was no longer just a duty. It was becoming personal. And she was not sure she could separate herself anymore. A few days later, the first sign of real danger appeared. While accompanying Ethan on a field experiment outside the colony, a sudden storm struck. Lightning split the sky, thunder shook the ground, and the humans scrambled for cover. Lyra's enhanced reflexes allowed her to keep Ethan safe, shielding him from falling debris. After the storm, They found themselves alone in a small cave. Ethan looked at her, gratitude shining in his eyes. "I don't know how to thank you," he said softly. You saved my life." More than once, Lyra hesitated. Every instinct told her to retreat, to maintain her cover. But looking into Ethan's sincere expression, she felt a pull she could not resist. "You are welcome," she replied, her voice quieter than usual. For the first time, she felt the weight of a truth she could not ignore. She cared for him. The storm outside raged, but inside the cave, time seemed to slow. Lyra realized that the mission she had accepted with confidence now carried unforeseen consequences. She was not merely a spy. She was someone who could feel, who could connect, who could risk everything for a human. That night, as she returned to her safe house, Lyra stared at the stars above. They were the same stars Xiphorians had studied for centuries, distant and cold. Yet here on Earth, under the same sky, she felt something she had never felt before. Hope. Her report remained unfinished. She could not bring herself to lie. The humans were not what Xiphorians had taught her to fear, and the one human she was sent to spy on had already changed the way she saw the world. Lyra knew one thing for certain. Her mission had only just begun, and already it was nothing like she had imagined. She was stepping into a path of uncertainty, where rules mattered less than choices, and where one simple act of kindness could alter everything. And so, under the quiet hum of her safe house lights, Lyra made a decision she would soon question. Again and again, she would continue her mission, but she would not betray the humans. Not Ethan, not the world she was beginning to understand. For the first time in her life, Lyra realized that observing was no longer enough. She was part of something bigger now, something dangerous, beautiful, and entirely human.